you. Okay, welcome everybody again. Again, I'm Justine Reiss, voiceover talent coach and narrator of the books that are featured here tonight. So we're really excited to have this panel of authors who all just happen to be female. Maybe that's no coincidence. And we all have one thing in common.
Excuse me for interrupting. How do we make the volume?
That's my father. Hello, Dad. Hello, Dad. Dad, you can just turn up your computer. Probably the best way to do that.
On the top right of mine,
Yeah.
or bottom right.
Yes.
How did he unmute himself?
I don't know how he unmuted himself. I thought I had that covered, but at any rate, we're going to ask you guys to stay muted until the very end. We're going to have some in-person Q&A. Now, I want you guys to keep the chat really active. So right now, if you can, tell us two things in the chat: where you live, where are you from? And if you're here because you're supporting, you're interested in doing an audiobook, or you're a writer. So which category do you fall into? Curious about voiceover, or maybe you're voiceover talent. So you could do an N for narrator, W for writer, and then tell us where you live. Northern California. Did that make sense? If you don't know where the chat is, it's down at the bottom. There's chat, and there's also the reaction tab, which can help you to raise your hand, which we will do that later. So with no further ado, I've said enough about myself. I want to start introducing the women I have here that have written books and helped publish books and are all about words and books. So let me start with, to my left, Florence Reiss Kraut, who also happens to be my aunt, author of Street Corner Dreams and How to Make a Life. Welcome.
I'm delighted to be here. I am so excited because there was so much interest in these audiobooks. Justine and I spent COVID together doing our first audiobook, How to Make a Life, and had enormous fun. We're going to tell you about the process of it later on. I've spent my professional career as a social worker until I retired, and that's when I became a serious writer and wrote 2 novels, working on my 3rd.
Fantastic. We will more about that as we go along. All right. The lovely Catherine Crawley, whose book I am currently working on. So her audiobook is coming soon, but her book is available, Walking on Fire. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Catherine.
Okay, I am originally from a small town in West Texas, but I've lived in Boston for the past 48 years. And I worked as a speech pathologist in Thessaloniki, Greece in the 1970s during a time of fierce anti-Americanism following the collapse of the Greek dictatorship installed by the CIA. And I'll tell more about my book later.
And it's been very fun because I've had to learn to say things like Thessaloniki and Stylianou. And there is a theme here as well with these 3 ladies' books, because there's lots of tricky language, Polish accents, and fun things like that. Susan Weisbach-Friedman, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am so happy to be here with all of you. And my background is as a clinical social worker and psychotherapist, which I've been working as for many years. And my debut novel, Klara's Truth, came out in June of this past year. And as far as my practice, in the last several years, I focused more on trauma, and that is a part of a thread of a theme in the book. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here with all of you.
Yay! And we are very happy to have you. And now let me introduce to you Mila Johansson, who has a wonderful publishing company. She helps people write books. She's helping me write a book. And I also had the privilege of narrating 101 Surprising Ways to Promote Your Book. And what's really, really cool about her addition to all of us is we all have something to learn from Mila. She is an absolute whiz on how to handle Amazon, publishing. Anyway, I'm just so excited to have you here as sort of a bridge between everything we're doing. Then, of course, I did get to narrate your book as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a writing, publishing, and public speaking coach. My grandmother taught public speaking to Eleanor Roosevelt and thousands of women, and later taught me. And I speak 1 to 4 times a week on summits and podcasts, and I help other people find those too. But I've written all those plays and musicals behind me. I'm kind of prolific, and I have like 14 bestsellers.
Ooh, and she's got all kinds of tricks up her sleeve to help your book become a best-selling book. So there's so many interesting avenues in the world of audiobook and book publishing. So I have a question for everyone in the audience. And first of all, do you listen to audiobooks? Put a 1 in the chat if you're a person who loves to listen to audiobooks. Put a 2 in the chat if you actually, as of the last few years, have started to prefer an audiobook to a regular book. All right, I'm seeing some 1s. Maybe not everyone knows how to use the chat. There we go. Get that chat active. Love it, love it, love it. I love books and creating stories. Great, great, great. This is really exciting. Now, also, I'm just curious to know if you are an Audible subscriber or you get your books somewhere else. So put an A in the chat if you're an Audible subscriber. There's many ways to get books now, but one statistic I found incredibly potent is that 30 to 40% of readers today prefer to listen to books. So having an audiobook has become a really important way to make sure that your readers are hearing your words. So we want to talk a little bit about the process, and I really would love for you to keep the chat active. So if you have a question about the process, there's a chance we might be answering it, but if we see your question, we'll make sure we answer it, and we will refer to the panel as we do that. Florence, you had some things that you felt. First of all, I know people were asking you right away, why don't you read your own book? And what did you have to say about that?
2 things. First thing is, I know that if I heard, because I've heard my voice on when I've recorded it, I would hate it. I would absolutely hate it. And in fact, just this weekend, we were with another writer who did his own audio. And one of the things he said was that it was the worst experience of his life, hearing his own voice. That was the first. But the second was that I had a hook or a link to a very talented actor who we all now see as Justine. And I asked her if she would read the book for me. And she was excited to do it. And so we explored it together. And it was absolutely the best decision that I made.
And what was really cool, and with all of you ladies, honestly, is the collaboration that I have enjoyed being. Now, these 3 ladies, the books are historical fiction on some level, or require a lot of accents, and that's not something that's always easy to find. And I think maybe, Susan, you actually had auditioned before we connected. I think you had gone through some auditioning process with finding a narrator. Is that right?
Yes, I had, I guess I had reached out to Florence, but between the time that I had reached out and the time that we ended up connecting, Florence and I got your name, I had already gone on to ACX's site and listened to some people. What you do as a writer is you give about 2 pages from your book, and then potential narrators will read for you. And it went from everything from serious narrators and actors to people who just kind of read it and were done and weren't that into it. So it was an interesting process, but I was really thrilled when it turns out that Florence connected me with Justine. And I'll say that you know, you're being able to really use various accents and portray various characters, male and female, and with Polish accents and Brooklyn accents and all kinds of things, I feel really opens up a lot in the book.
Well, thank you. And I think the feedback that we've gotten with reviews, and if any of you are avid readers or listeners, please support your authors because the reviews really do matter. And just so everyone knows, we're putting the link that is in the chat that says Amazon book is a link for all the books. If you wanted to buy them, check them out. And we are going to do some giveaways of codes, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So thank you for that. And again, any questions regarding how this process works, we want to hear from you.
Justine, can I just say that I'm
Yeah.
starting out in this process. We're on chapter 6, and it's been so magical to get to hear my words spoken by you.
Oh,
Not only are the quality of your voice and how you're embodying already just early on in the chapters, different characters is really wonderful. And the way you say Kalimera in Greek is just almost made me cry. So
well, I have to
I just wanted to say
Yes.
something, that when I listened to the book the first time, I felt like I was listening to a radio play. And I think that is the mark of a great narrator. So
Well,
kudos.
thank you. I think the best compliment I have received as of yet has been something like that, when people say, and this is for anyone interested in narrating, and this is kind of a good testament to why coaching is really, really important. If we do have any budding voiceover talent out there, that having really working with a coach, and listen, there's nonfiction too. So it's not like if you want to do this, you have to have a myriad of accents. It just so happens that's my jam, right? And as far as Kalimera goes, my dad has a funny story about Kalimera, but maybe if we have time, Dad, we'll share that at the end. But I did spend a little time in Greece, so I got to hear that word. But working with a coach and really understanding how to bring words to life, and even if it's just the author's words, you have a job to do. Mila, you want to talk a little bit about that as a narrator and as a writer who represents so many other authors because you publish books also, giving those words life, and how important is that to you as a writer?
Oh, I can't even believe it when I hear the book. It's, and you just read my 101 Surprising Tips, which I'm going to give everyone a copy of an ebook today as a gift.
Yay.
And it's only $6.75 because Audible goes by page number, and this is only 70 pages. And I'm writing my bigger book now, which maybe you can narrate that one too. And it's going to be the Bible of self-publishing. Click this, click that. But it brings it to life. It's like when you're writing a book, you read your book like, I don't know, 50 times, 500 times. But when I heard it read, it was like a whole new book. It was so alive, and it's so amazing to get your book Audible. And I help everyone publish their book. So I say it's real estate. Do it all. Do your paperback and wait. Don't do your ebook first. There's a myth, and I could tell you about that later. Then do your ebook, then do a PDF that you can give away when you speak if you want, and then you can do a flip book, and then do a hardcover if it's a big enough book, and then do the audiobook because it's real estate. Put it everywhere, and you don't know, it adds up,
That's right.
And so it's so exciting to have that anyway. And here, I'll put my gift in the chat that everyone can grab, and you can have the free it's a PDF of the ebook that I give away when I speak.
Great. It's for anybody who wants to write. It's such great tips. And of course, get the audio too. It's inexpensive. And if you I put a first question, the famous first lines. Which famous book starts with the line, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times"? If you think you might know the answer, put your answer in the chat. We'll be keeping our eye on that. What are some funny things that happened in the process of creating an audiobook? We don't have anything yet, Catherine, but Florence? We
Oh,
might have-
yeah. Well, first of all, I probably gave you the biggest challenge
Yes.
that you could have possibly had. My first book is a multi-generational family saga, had so many characters. Justine had to keep all of them straight. Some of them had accents. Some of them had, spoke the King's English. And one time, in fact, she thought the guy was from Brooklyn, which he was, but he was a very educated lawyer. And she was reading him as if he had a Brooklyn accent. So we had to go back over it. One of the fun things was describing the characters, really trying to figure out how would they sound, and figuring out the words. And one time, I forgot what Yiddish word it was, but you looked it up and I looked it up, and there were several pronunciations of it.
We had to come to an agreement.
An agreement on which
yes.
one you could use, right?
Because Yiddish words are like that sometimes.
Yes. Anyway, it was just so much fun to do it. It took a lot of Justine's time because she even had some characters that started out as 12-year-olds and wound up being 70-year-olds at the end of the book. And your voice changes. This is what she told me. So
this
that
is
was
a very interesting thing that, and this happens a lot. So again, another hats off to training. And I happen to have a guest here tonight that if people have specific questions, Miss Kathy Colas, who trains narrators with the other organization we work with called Such a Voice. And some of you guys are narrators and voiceover talent from our organization. But this is very true. If you are doing an audiobook, the character may enter on page 5 and not appear again until page 205, right? So you've got to remember what that character, and it's not just voice, sometimes it's posture and lots of things. So if you have questions about that, please type those in the chat because we would love to answer them. Susan, I'm trying to think if we had any interesting things. There's sort of a love story that goes on in Susan's book and in one of Florence's books as well. So there's the changing the character in a scene between a man and a woman. Anything surprising, or that when you listened to it the first time, did it match what your image was of the character?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I just really enjoyed hearing them come to life. And I was very impressed with how you were able to really delineate each of the characters, even because there were some who spoke with a Polish accent if the book is in English, and some male, some female, and how you made each one sound like an individual, right? As opposed to just like things getting everything sounding the same. And I thought you did a really good job with that. And I loved hearing the characters come to life. And like Florence was saying before, it was like listening to a radio program, or a TV program, but without the visuals.
correct.
Awesome. Well, I think a lot of you got the answer. C, Tale of Two Cities. Very good. Ding, 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 ding. We will check back with you on that one. And I'm still very anxious to hear any questions that anybody has about the creation of an audiobook.
Erin P said she would like to be a reader, so she might want to sign up with you under your program.
Okay, fantastic. Let's put something in the chat for you specifically about that. Yeah, I'm happy to follow up with all of you or any of you. I mean, this is all recorded, so make sure that you put your email address, although I probably have it.
Yeah, and Manuel Rivera is also interested.
Yes, and Manuel is already coming to talk to me. I think I see you on my schedule already. Yeah. So this is really, really great. We want to demystify a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes. One of the things, and I think I am going to bring up Kathy, because none of you had to go through, except Mila actually experienced listening to a lot of narrators. Yeah, Kathy, come on up.
I'm here.
a lot of our narrators, and I'm going to spotlight you. And Kathy and I are starting to do something super fun that we will share a little bit about as well.
Very
Maybe
exciting.
yes, for ad spotlight. Okay. So welcome, Kathy Colas.
Thank you, Justine
she is-
Reiss.
Honestly, I got a secret for you guys. She helped me edit, I think, almost all of your books.
I kind of did. I kind of did.
So one of the things I want narrators to know out there is, and Kathy's a whiz at training narrators to do a lot of this editing. It's much more tricky than a 30-second spot where you really don't have to do much editing at all, except taking breaths out and things like that.
Mhm.
Audiobook is we're not going to get into the weeds on this, but for those of you that are interested, absolutely, the training is unbelievable. Kathy is amazing. And maybe you can share a little bit with us about, what the challenges you see when narrators want to start working, and then working with the authors and the narrators.
Absolutely. The biggest challenge for a lot of people is the technical part, honestly. I mean, there's, oh, gosh, probably 60 to 70% of the people I see are terrified of the technical. And honestly, the technical can be a little bit challenging, but it's all about repetition, right? The more you do it, your first audiobook will be the hardest, but you will learn everything about editing and mastering and all of that stuff. But it's tough, and you have to set up a professional sounding studio area. And that's something that's hard for a lot of people if you don't have coaching and know how to do that. So there's a lot more to it than just hopping on your phone mic or your computer mic and just kind of, hey, I'm going to do an audiobook. So
And one of the things that, I think Mila, you experienced when you listened to maybe a different book that she did before we met, you listened to like 20 different auditions, right?
Yeah, but I did find a reader, so it was good. That's another way of doing it, but I think that what you guys are offering will be very useful and get it done. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can talk a little bit. So we started something called an audio matching
matchmaking.
system, matchmaking. So because we've trained, and this is great for all of you guys that are wanting to potentially work with us at Such a Voice, or maybe already are. This is in the works that we want to pay it forward, because the knowledge, as these ladies are attesting to, working with a narrator that can really get the book done, even if the voice is great, that doesn't mean they can get it up and loaded. There's a whole host of things that go on the back end, and we want to sort of help with that. So if you're on the publishing end or the narrating end, we want to like support that. Yes, Florence.
I just wanted to say there's a very interesting question in the
Mm.
chat that I'd love it if we talked about, because I've thought about this myself. Have any of you done audiobooks with sound, music, background dramatization? Mine is almost ready to go out. I just wondered if anyone has done this and what audiobook buyers are saying.
Now,
Well,
when you say,
I did one.
Back
I-
to the question, but is the question, are you
Who-
saying mine is
It's
about
in the
ready-
chat. It's in the
It's in
chat.
the practical, it's somebody who wrote a book,
Yeah.
right?
And when
Yeah.
you say yours is ready to, if I knew who you were, I would try to unmute you. Can
There she
someone
is.
tell me the
She's
name?
Sue Camillone. Camillone?
Cameo.
Cameo.
Close enough.
I'm gonna let Kathy, can you start to answer that? Music is not generally used in audiobooks, but do you have any specific, I've heard it
Yeah.
sometimes used at the very beginning.
Well, here's what a lot of people will do. In the opening credits, they will play some music. Now, there are a lot of graphic novels, which used to be called comic books, but a lot of I just did one for HarperCollins. It
Oh.
was a multi-narrator whole thing, and they are putting the sound effects, the zing hoy, the this and that, all through the book. And they're doing that a lot more lately.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a great thing or not, but they are doing that. Typically, personally, I like one narrator and I like to get just brought into the story, and I don't want to think about the narrator. I want to forget there's a narrator, and I want to be in this, I want to be listening to your story. And that's the biggest job of a narrator, to be
Yes,
invisible.
Kathy, I'm gonna add to that.
Yeah.
The best compliment I was paid was by the way, a woman, an author who I can't remember her name, Florence, because this is the other thing. authors talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
I love this person. Oh, try my narrator. I mean, that is one thing I always want to share with narrators. Work gets work gets work. You get in with a publisher or a publicist who becomes aware of you, knows you can get the job done, and then there it is. That's how referrals happen.
Right.
Okay, so Sue, I want you to maybe come on and tell us a little more. Are you saying that you have a book and you already have a narrator, or you're sort of shopping that right now? And
No.
Sue, if
Yeah. It's Camioni. I'm sorry. Camioni.
somebody unmuted you, great. Okay, great.
No, I've already done it, and it's a memoir, so it's in my voice.
Oh, you did it
Went through-
yourself.
Yeah, I went through a number of listening to other actors, even an AI of my voice, and pretty much right across the board, everyone said it's got to be you. Did
Yes.
that, and then had and my daughter actually works in animation and comic books and so on, and the
Okay.
suggestion came up, and so we actually did some testing, and it sounds very good. It's at the very beginning. There's a few places within the chapter, and then at the end, but it sounds like you're in a movie, is what it sounds like. I really like it a lot, but I don't
Great.
have no idea of
And
return on investment.
wonderful. And sometimes it's not everyone shouldn't do their book. We're not saying that. I just think you have to have some background in it, and I'm glad that that worked out. And it's great, I think, for nonfiction too. I know there's a publisher here named by the name of Chris. I saw you come in, Chris. I don't know if you're still in the room, but we were talking a little bit about this. It's just that it's not always easy. And as Florence said, with a friend of hers, I even met an author, and I can't remember her name, Florence, at an event, who had an acting background, and she literally said to me, it was worse than childbirth. So anyway, we just want to, you can figure out what works best for you, and but we are here to support that. And I don't know, Kathy, do you have a little something we can post?
We have a form. Do you
Okay,
want-
we'll put it in
did
the
you want-
chat.
Do you want to put the form in the chat where we can,
Sure, we'll put the form
if
in
you
the
guys
chat.
have questions or you're
Yes.
interested in talking to us, I'm gonna put that form link in
Okay,
the
she's
chat
gonna put
for
the form
you.
in the chat, and
I'm
that's
gonna-
for if you are either a narrator, well, we're probably gonna go with, we have to vet you, but if you're a publisher and author and you want our help casting your book, because she and I can't do all of them, although we'd love to, we just want to help that process out. And somebody mentioned AI. Let's talk about not doing that and why.
Don't do it.
And why not to do it. And the major reason is because what does AI stand for? Type that in the chat, if you will, or say it out loud if you're on the panel.
Artificial intelligence.
Right. And we are going for authentic intelligence. And AI still cannot be directed. It doesn't breathe. I loved when Kathy pointed that out. We leave the breaths in a lot in the books. You will hear, especially in in fiction, you're going to hear the breath. The breath is emotion. The breath is what we call verbal cue. Often, and I don't know if this took any of you guys by surprise when you heard me maybe add a laugh, especially you, Mila, like this was nonfiction, right? But there's funny things in there. And was there anything that took you by surprise when you heard it? Like, oh, that, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, well, you're good at getting that humor out too, and because I'm funny. I mean, you either write your book chatty, happy Kathy. I mean, which everybody wants right now. First person, or you write it more professional if you're writing a one about caregiving or psychology. But
Yeah.
most people they have a small attention span. So I said, so you want to write a book? Are you thinking about writing a book? And she did it just better than me. Perfect. Yeah.
I love it. So I'd love to, I'm seeing, please keep your questions going. And in the last 10 minutes, I'm going to let you raise your hands. Did you guys like that last question I put in the chat about what do people do? Like what are some of the things you're doing when you're listening to audiobooks? So pretty much everything or anything, some people, but you don't have to just sit and listen. Can anybody share, actually, I'd like all of you guys to share a little bit more about yourselves as writers, because I know we have budding writers in the room or published writers, and everyone's got a little bit of a story. And I know, Mila's not only a writer, but is helping other people get their books done. So maybe if everyone could take like a minute and talk about your journey to writing. And let's start with you, Florence.
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, but I took a 30-year or so detour. First of all, I got married and had children, but I was always writing. I was dabbling, I was taking classes, I was taking workshops. And when I went to school to become a social worker, that sort of took most of my time, and a very long and productive and wonderful career. I loved it. But somewhere in the middle of it, when I was about 45 years old, I realized that if I didn't get serious with my writing, I was going to die unhappy because I couldn't put on my tombstone that I had been a writer, because that was what I really always wanted. And so I really became very serious and spent time learning how to write while I was working. And when I retired, I could really spend my time at it.
I want to pause for a second, and I really want to honor what Florence said, because I want to know, please put ones in the chat if you can resonate with, if I don't do this thing before I die, I will not feel fulfilled. Put some ones in the chat. And if it's writing or be doing voiceover, we want to help you, right? Mila can help you write that book. We can help you get the book done on audio. And I and Kathy can also help you if you're just interested in coaching and training in voiceover. That is what we do. That is what we love to do. We love to pass the baton. So how does it feel, Florence? And really
A lot of people resonated. They were all putting
a lot of
ones.
ones.
A lot of ones. I think everybody, I laughingly say my first desire was to be a ballet dancer. When I got to be 45, I realized, yeah, I'm not going to be a ballet dancer. There are some things that do pass you by, and you can't really get them going. But most things you can do. You can do, and I'm living proof that that is possible.
I don't think it's just you. So I would like to pose that same question to you, Catherine, who I don't really even know how long. If this is your first novel, I think. Yes.
Correct. You're right.
Okay. So give us a little short synopsis on how you decided, I'm doing it. I'm getting this book done.
I've taken writing classes. Well, ever since I came back from Greece, I wanted to write about my experiences and have taken a lot of writing classes. I retired. When I retired, I became more serious, and I found a writing course in Taos, New Mexico, with some man and his wife who have a program called Write to the Finish. And it was a 9-month period of writing where you were through exercises and being supervised and in critique groups, you ended up with a book. And so my book was going to be a memoir. It transitioned to being a novel. And so I would say that one intense shot of working almost every day on this book was what birthed it, funnily in 9 months time. But and then it took a couple of years to get it ready for publication. And Florence and Susan and I are all published by She Writes Press.
Yes.
And
yes.
so there were more procedures and copy editing that happened as a result of She Writes. But
That's
it's
great.
been an amazing experience.
And I also want to point out something Catherine just said, is that the book you might think is going in one direction. She was writing a memoir, and then it became something else. And so be open-minded. But one of the things I am trained in is something called the Dream Bigger meditation, which has really helped me imagine my own future and help other people that want to do voiceover and feel like they can't or they should have a long time ago. This is the thing. And maybe tonight's your night to start thinking about that thing. If it's a book or a voiceover career, great. If it's something else, but think about what it is. Write it down for yourself. That's a little fun exercise. If you want to share it in the chat, great. But really write it down for yourself and then start imagining what would the little step be. So same question to you, Susan. You just became a writer. This is your first book. So tell us a little bit about how
Yes.
you decided to take that leap and actually write the book.
Yeah. So in looking back, I definitely loved to do creative writing as a child. And I remember continuing to do it through middle school and what was then called junior high. But by the time I got to high school, that wasn't an option. And when I was in college, I didn't choose any of those classes. So there was this long period of time or a long hiatus, I would say into my mid 40s, about 15 years ago. And I started to do journaling. And as a therapist, some people know, not others, that that therapists in their training and also later in their careers at different points are encouraged to have their own therapy. And in conjunction with my own therapy, I was also journaling. And so I started to think about the process of doing therapy, and doing therapy was kind of like, especially deep therapy, like an excavation of artifacts. And so then I started to come out with this character who's my main character, Klara, who turns out to be an archaeologist. My process took like 10 years, and I took workshops, and I ended up writing like 3 different stories. And but ultimately the last few years working with She Writes, I came out with my book. And the last thing I will say is that I kept thinking I was going to have another part of the book in there, and I was continuously told that's another story. And so letting go of that was really hard.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, letting go. I think this is a great time to pass it to you, Mila, who has worked with so many people that probably didn't think they could write a book, and then you helped them. And I'm sure you have numerous stories, but is there anything that stands out about how you really helped someone get from pen to publish, which is the name of her
Well,
book?
there's a big secret. Just start. They've written all these articles about me for the last 40 years. And after they talk to me, they always title it Just Start or Just Do It.
Yeah.
And so that's the main thing. Put your pen on paper. Think 20 minutes a day is the word on the street. 5 minutes a day will add up to a book. Toni Morrison, the famous novelist, only had 15 minutes a day when she first wrote her book because of children and work. And I became a writer because I saw real quick story. I saw Mary Poppins when I was a kid. Yeah, it dates me, the real one with Julie Andrews. And I came home and I drew all these chalk drawings, and I can't even draw stick people, so they weren't very good. And I closed my eyes and I jumped in. I knew I could be there. And I tried 8 times, it didn't work, but I knew I still think I could do it because of my meditation and everything. So then I thought, well, if I can't do that, I'll write a book like, Nancy Drew or the Oz books. And so I started writing a book, and I wrote 1.5 pages and I quit because I was 8. And then my mother tricked me into becoming a writer, which I trick all of you into. She said, Mila, I know you want to be a writer when I was 18. Just write 1 sentence a day. And I go, oh, I can write 1 sentence a day, but you can't because it's like potato chips. And by the end of the month, I was a writer. So I trick people with 5 minutes a day, and they say, Mila, I tried 5 minutes a day, but I ended up writing more. So I trick you. And then also, when you're done working with me, you'll have so many more ideas for books. I have several people start with me with 1 book, and now we're on their 5th book.
And there's so many things that can be turned into a book. And this is probably
Yes.
more about nonfiction, I think, at least for me. Who Mila's helping me write a book called Reclaim Your Voice. And it's an amalgam of different things that I have talked about, written. I do a lot of dictation when I write, and then I edit from there. That's a system that works for me because I'm very verbal. That might seem like not writing really to some people, but it works for me. And I know, like Florence, you have written your whole life.
Yes.
But what was the feeling? And this is, everyone can say this actually, for all 4 of you, when you got your book published? What was the feeling that you had? The first one.
Ah. It was, it just felt like a dream come true. I mean, that's the whole process, because, once you write it and then you get into the publishing process and you get galleys and you have to edit them and they get edited. You pick out a cover and a title. I mean, there's a whole process. It takes up your life. And then to have a book in your hand was like, uh, it just is, there were no words to really express how I felt, except maybe validated. And I thought, I did it and I can do it again. And I
Amazing.
did.
Yeah. And you're teaching others by doing. Catherine, you want to share your feeling?
I like the word validated as well, but for me, there was another aspect of it because, as I said, I had wanted to write about my experiences in Greece. And although the book is fiction, there are people in my book who were very much a part of my life when I was in Greece. And writing scenes and getting to have those people sort of captured on pages, and people who are no longer in my life who have passed away, I created something that is lasting and that they will be forever on pages in my book. And
Yeah.
for me, that's very special.
That's that. And I want to
Agreed.
say something about legacy because it didn't even occur to me. But if you have taken a voiceover class with me, it suddenly occurred to me, and this obviously relates so much to Florence's books because she's my aunt. But it occurred to me that, wow, long after I am not on this earth anymore, my children and great grandchildren will be able to listen to my voice, and especially very beautiful, they'll be able to listen to my aunt's words in my voice. And man, evergreen, I never even knew what that word was, but if you want to do audiobooks, that is true for you too, even if it's not your aunt's words. You are still leaving a legacy, as you ladies are with your words on paper as well. Susan, you want to take that feeling out, because I know
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, when I first found out that She Writes had accepted my work and that they were going to be my publisher, to the point, and that was after querying many traditional publishing company, literary agents, excuse me, and getting some rejections, some without any answer, and some encouragement. But mostly, it felt like my queries were going into a big black hole. And a friend had told me about She Writes, and I had actually taken out that part of the story I referred to before, and then sent it. I said, forget the querying. I'm just going with She Writes. And from that point of hearing the positive acceptance to actually getting the physical book in my hands, when I opened the box and first saw it, and first you get advanced reader copy, which looks a lot like this, but there's some editing after that. That whole period was amazing, just amazing, and busy and exciting. And the whole process of writing the book had been a labor of love, so it really came to fruition. And yes, it felt very validating. And once you write one, what other people have been saying, it's like, I have another one, I have a prequel that I am writing, and it feels doable. It feels much more possible.
So I want to go back to put ones in the chat if you maybe feel a little bit more like you might want to take a tiny baby step to your dream of either writing or doing voiceover or using your voice in some way, one of these ways. If you feel like you could take a small action, which might be contacting Mila or contacting me or Kathy about voiceover, If this is inspiring to you, it's inspiring to me and all of us. Also, I'm going to get to you, Mila. I have the same question for you. I put a survey that we would love to get you to your feedback on, so we can do more events like this. And of course, there's the link with all the books. And then Catherine, I want you to put a link to your book. We love your support. We will follow up with some special codes for some of you, but this is just so interesting. And if you have a question you would like to come on camera, we would love to hear it. So go down to the reactions, react on the bottom of the screen and raise your virtual hand, and I will see that. And then you can direct your question to anybody on the panel, including Kathy. Mila, would you answer a similar question for yourself? But then as a publisher, what's that feeling been helping other people do this?
Yeah, I wanted to say that often I'm working with someone and they get a little, you get a little dejected in the middle of your project. I always do, Of course, this is my book about my famous grandmother. It's my heart book. I have a lot of books, but this one, so what I do with people, and I just did with 3 people this week, is I say, let's put your book up on Amazon now. It's halfway done or 2/3 done or almost all the way done. So you can get it in your hand. You can start feeling what it's going to look like. You know how you feel when you touch a book? I do this with a lot of people. I just did it
Wait a
with
second,
her.
hold on. I want to understand this better so that our audience can understand it too. Are you saying before the book's finished, it's like in a pre-sale or in an ebook?
No,
What are we saying?
no. All it is because you join KDP today because you get tutorials and templates. But what I do, like one guy, we're going through his book for months, and he started getting a little depressed about it because he had some physical problems. And I said, your book's very good. If people doubt right in the middle, that's right before the book becomes a masterpiece. That always happens to me every single time. So what I did was I said, you know what, let's take your book now because it's almost ready, and let's put it on KDP and get samples because you get free samples. That's the best part of KDP, Amazon's publishing arm. And so we got his book done this week, and he held it in his hand. He went, oh, it's not as big and thick as I thought. He thought he'd have to cut a lot more. I did it with this woman too. We've been working together for 3 years on her book. She just keeps having things come up. And I said, let's just get it into a book so you can feel it and look at it. So I do that with people. And then another thing I just wanted to mention, because you were saying how you're talking your book. I teach classes all the time. Dr. L has me teach other people where we take your already written material, maybe your blogs, maybe your master's thesis, maybe your transcripts from podcasts or Zoom, and then we put them into an instant book. One woman had a master's thesis on altars, and I said, here's a template. And we dumped it in 5 minutes, she had a book. She would have to go in and reformat some things, but she was thrilled. So you don't have to write all new stuff. You probably all have great material already written at your house.
Yes, wonderful. So take that to your, take that away with you this evening, and think about what little step you might want to take, or just start writing. I mean, it can't be bad. Any questions? Yes, Florence.
I just wanted to say that, and Mila just put that in my mind. The process of publishing is so multifaceted now, and there are so many different ways to do it. There's the traditional way, and Susan described that a little bit, where you got 10 pages, you send 10 pages of your writing with a query letter to 75 agents, and you get back from maybe 50 of them, you hear thanks but no thanks, and from 1 or 2, this is really interesting but it's not for me, etc. And sometimes somebody will take it and they will go and try to sell it to one of the big publishing houses. Remember that they only take things that they think will make them money, right? But then now there are all the hybrid publishing houses. There are the self-publishing. Mila knows how to do that. I mean, and lots of self-published authors are doing very, very well. So I just wanted to sort of open up that whole thing. there is not just one way to
Yes.
do it. There are
There
many
really
ways to do
isn't,
it
and there's never been more ways to do it.
than now. Right.
And I don't want to lose track of the fact that don't want to forget that one of the things we're really trying to get across here is have all these formats. Have your ebook, have your paperback, have your giveaway, and have your audiobook, because you want to reach as wide of an audience with your words and your message as you can. And on that note, I'm going to bring forward a friend of mine, Chris Trummel, who is also in the publishing of books world. And you have a question. So I'm going to bring you up and spotlight you, sir. Hello.
I am. Hi, everyone. Fabulous, just great knowledge here and great experience from the room. Mila, what a library of work that you have behind you, and the gold nuggets that you're dropping right here. If people just took them and implemented them, would transform their business trajectory. That's how good the nuggets are that you're dropping. And because those are the things that I listen for. So my question, because I look at life after publishing, like, what is I haven't heard anybody speak about or into what do they really want to accomplish through the narration of their book, through the publishing of their book. Now, I work with the nonfiction, leadership, management, personal development, professional development, difference maker group. So I know they have a different flavor of what they're out to accomplish. They're not the memoir writers that they hold their heart differently, but they're like, let's get this into the world. So is there anyone in this audience that is part of the?
I'd like to answer that one. Is that I'm helping a lot of people write their expert book to show their expertise, and they're not even selling their books as much as they are selling their programs. And like,
Yes.
I speak with my book, I think that's what you're talking about and what you coach probably. But when I speak about this book, people go, wow, she really knows what she's talking about, and they sign up with me. And so I'm actually making my money not off the book, but off helping people. And I even don't charge very much for people to work for me compared to other people who are charging $2,000, $5,000, you know.
So
And
I'm gonna just encapsulate this, because it's kind of a different need that speakers and have to have a book. And I believe, Chris, you call it something like you have a term for it.
Authority book. Your
An authority book, or your expert, and how.
Good question.
So I don't know if your question was also about how beneficial is having the audio, but I want to say incredibly beneficial, because you could give away, again, people love to listen. How many people, when you give your book away, do they actually read it? How many might actually listen to it? So one of the things that Amazon does, if you are exclusive with them, and we're not going to get in the weeds on this, is you get codes to give your book away. It's one incentive for Amazon to have you be an exclusive with them. But Florence is not exclusive with Amazon, and her book is available on Spotify, and we have codes from Spotify. So there are ways to still get your audio in a giveaway format. And that's one big reason to use it the same way you're encouraging your authors that are, you know, speakers, motivational in that world. So that's my thought on that, is more formats, more listeners. You know, that's my real thought on that.
It's real estate. Do it all.
It's real estate. Do it all. That's right. Thank you very much, Chris. And we are about 5 minutes to time. If there's any more questions, please raise your hand. Kay, please drop all the links we have. There's a survey. I would be so grateful to get back. I will email it out as well and follow up with everybody. I am oh, my dad said he's very proud of us, Florence. So and it's really been, you know, I do think that my parents were avid readers. I can't even tell you how they instilled in me the love of reading, but I didn't have the zest for it. But I always loved language. I liked books with lots of dialogue. That's what kept me interested. And I think it's because I would create the characters in my head. So maybe it's no mistake that this is what I love to do now. I'd love to do like some final words, and then Kay, please drop all the links. Please go. And if you want to purchase the books, please purchase the books. If you will offer a review to the Audible and the written they are separate, and it's important to support your friends that do this. So let's do some final sort of wrap ups for this amazing Pen to Playback. I'm really just very grateful, honored, and actually kind of blown away that we had almost 50 people in the room that interested in this adventure. But Florence, take it away.
Well, I just want to say that I love the fact that the book is in audio, because when I was working and commuting, that's how I got, through all of the traffic jams, was sitting in them listening to wonderful, wonderful books. And I really commend this idea of that Mila was talking about, getting it out get your books out in all the versions. It's very important.
Absolutely. Great. So get it out in all the versions. Catherine.
I'm so grateful to Florence and Susan, because at the Boston Book Festival, when we were a cohort selling our books for She Writes Press, they were surprised that I didn't have an audiobook and said, you have to have one. I was so concerned because the Greek language is sort of another character in my book. And Florence
Yes,
said,
it is.
yes, it is. Florence said, my niece does languages beautifully, and you do. So it's opened up a whole new avenue for me, a whole new world. So thank you to you, Justine, and to Florence and to Susan.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Susan.
Yeah, I say that the whole process of publishing, and which include and later working with you, Justine, in terms of the audio, I've met so many people, other writers who I've just learned so much from. And I continue to learn so much from, as well as from you, Justine. And I feel like, at this point in my life, there's this whole other life that's it's become available to me. And I'm really thrilled about it.
Great. I thank you so much. And then Mila, I see Joy definitely wants to talk to you about, she feels like she's struggling a little, and maybe you can help her figure out how to get started. So we're going to do follow-up with everybody. So if you have questions, we will get the answers. But yes, Mila, last words.
Just start. Don't wait. Start writing. And even if you do 20 minutes a day, it feels more attainable. We don't have to do that 2-hour thing anymore. And then join KDP today. The reason is you can get a template. And guess what? I wrote this book straight into the template from KDP. 6
And
by
you know
9
what? That's what
industry
she's
standard.
teaching. I am in process, and that is exactly what Mila told me to do. And it's so great because I pulled the book up to work on it, and it's in the template. I mean, these are just little tricks that are very helpful. I am so unbelievably grateful that you all have allowed me to speak life into your books. It is something that gives me great joy, and I love helping other people do it too. And I hope that if any of you out there are thinking about wanting to do something that seems impossible, write a book, do voiceover, narrate a book, it's not. Just start. Same thing with using your voice. And we can help you do that. So thank you all for coming from pen to playback. That is what we're calling this. Thank you all for coming from pen to playback. I'm so emotional. I can't talk. And jazz hands for all of our authors and all the narrators out there. And please buy books, and please fill out our survey. We would love to hear from you, and so we can do more things like this. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Good night.
Great job, all.
Night.
Thank you.
All right, we're closing it down. Bye, everybody.
Bye, all. Thanks, Justine.
Thank you, Chris.